Morning all, welcome to a news of the day type video for Friday. I recognize what day it is today. Yesterday when I did the news of the day video, I thought it was Friday. So my wife normally takes her daughter to Vancouver on Fridays for the weekends that she spends with her dad. She went yesterday because of the long weekend. And so I was like, oh, Yvonne's going to Vancouver, so it's Friday. So my brain didn't kick in that it was actually Thursday until around noon hour where I'm like, no, it's Thursday. So that's why I was talking about Bundesliga starting today, which is Friday, which it isn't. It starts tomorrow. So still not seeing myself getting up at 6 a.m. to watch it, though. Just saying. All right. Now, Dominic Simone has had shoulder surgery, and he's out for 6 to 7 months, which right now, right? Now, here's the one thing, of course, when it comes to these sort of things, don't be surprised if these show up because there's a lot of areas where elective surgeries weren't being performed. So we may very well start seeing players going in for surgeries that you're like, why did they wait so long? And it may very well be that they're in an area where elective surgeries weren't happening. And now when they start up again, of course, whether or not that means more complications, waiting longer to have surgery can mean more complications, but they've all been in isolation, so it shouldn't be a problem. We'll see. So yeah, Simone out for 6 to 7 months. If we have the restart, he's not going to be a part of it, which is going to be a storyline. But we'll get to that. PK Subban. So I feel bad for PK today because I'm scrolling through different sites and every site is reporting that PK Subban is saying he is still one of the best in the NHL at his position. And of course, this will lead to people saying, oh, he's arrogant and he's crazy and what is he thinking? But honestly, he has to feel that way. And he even says in the article I was reading that if you don't feel that way about yourself, you don't feel like you can still be a premier athlete, you might as well retire. So I agree with him. I agree with him that every year he needs to approach it as if he is still a Norris Trophy winner, that he can still win the Norris Trophy. Because the moment that he goes, well, I'm more of a 5'6" guy, that's probably it for him. And I honestly, I do hope to see some sort of comeback from him over the next 12 months. It'd be nice to see. Because again, when he was at his best in Montreal, yeah, he was still making defensive mistakes, but boy, the offense made up for it. And yeah, so he might have got called out for some goals he looked bad on when he was in Montreal, but he also looked pretty darn good on other occasions. The problem is now in New Jersey, he's still having those mistakes, but the offense isn't as spectacular as it was back then, so there's less to cover up for the defensive errors. Now, we haven't heard anything this week from the NHL other than they're not thinking about canceling the season. I had expected that maybe today at the latest we would hear about the plan. But apparently, plan's getting kicked down the road. So next week, according to Brad Treliving, he thinks, and I mean, he'd know better than we do. As general manager, he'd have more inside information than we have. And he believes next week we're going to see, both a draft plan and an NHL restart plan actually revealed to the public. And everything that's been said in the press this week has been along the lines of the committees meeting multiple times this week, which is the first week they've done that where the return to play committee has met. And they've actually been coming up with some kind of ideas. So apparently in the beginning it was just these, well, here's a million different ideas, we'll see what sticks. And now they're coming up with more concrete plans. Not everybody likes the 2014 play-in. Not everybody likes the idea of 16 teams. And there's a reason for that. We didn't have a full 82-game schedule. So there are definitely teams that would be outside the playoffs right now that if we'd played a full 82 might have been in. Which is part of the reason why I'm fine with them having a play-in this year. And if your team loses to Montreal in a play-in, then you probably weren't going to win the cup anyways. That's how I see it. And so I don't really have a problem with the number of teams being 24. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. I know it's going to bother other people, but I grew up in a time when there were 16 out of 21 teams that made the playoffs. Again, if you don't win that first round, well, I guess it just wasn't your year. And his optimism that we're going to see some kind of an announcement next week, good. He feels that after this week's long weekend, that we'll see some kind of an announcement from the NHL, maybe as early as Tuesday. That would be nice if that were true. I know, you're not holding your breath, right? Right. Hershey's affiliation with the Washington Capitals has been extended through 2023-2024. This has been a very good, mutually beneficial pairing. And in terms of AHL franchises, Hershey is one of the most stable, excellent franchises that you can be paired up with. And you would think that if we do see a season where there's less than 31 AHL teams playing and some just can't afford to play without fans, you would think Hershey would be one of the last that would declare such a thing. That Hershey, just on a name value, you got to think they'd have the sponsorships, they'd have other ways in order to be able to play and still make some money and not be losing a bunch. And then again, it'll be easier for the teams that are NHL owned to play out next year than it will for the ones that are independent, because most owners aren't going to want to make no money and spend a ton of money without some kind of incentive in there. So yeah, good on Washington for extending a mutually beneficial relationship. Kevin Bieksa, who's been very popular when it comes to the interview circuit, and rightfully so. Kevin Bieksa was always one of the most personable players in the NHL. And for fans outside of Vancouver, there were times that certain fan bases didn't like Bieksa very much. I did, and I liked Bieksa right out of the gate. I remember his first year, he had, I think it was 6 assists in 39 games, and I said that guy's going to be a regular in the lineup, and I had arguments with hockey fans about that around here. There were some who felt that he wasn't going to be a regular, and I was like, oh, he'll be a regular. And honestly, one of the most personable players. And he is thinking that of his former teammates, when asked which one do you think is going to make a good coach, he thinks Alex Burrows will be the best of the bunch. And Burrows makes sense when you think about it. Hard worker, nothing was handed to him. Undrafted, had to bust his way up from the ECHL through to the NHL. And there were no handouts. So you've got to think he would be a tough but fair coach. And he might be good at seeing potential in a player that nobody else does. Before Burrows was stuck with the Sedins, there was a debate about how useful the Burrows jersey was out on the ice for Vancouver. I assume with Burrows wearing it. And yeah, there was always that debate. And then he's paired up with the Sedins and it just worked. So he may very well be somebody who can see something in another player that other coaches don't, because he realizes Vigneault saw something in him that other coaches didn't as well. So could be a very good communicator too. Burrows was never shy when it came to the little communication side. In fact, there were times where Burrows and Kessler would be beaking off at the other team, and I'd be like, you guys might want to just knock that off a little bit. Just tone it down just a little bit. And of course, Bieksa wasn't shy either, so quite the yappy team, those Vancouver Canucks back in the day. I feel old calling that team back in the day as well, so there you go. Max Domi said he hasn't had any substantial contract talks with Montreal. Doesn't surprise me. His contract's going to be one of the more expensive ones. The expensive ones, until we know what the salary cap's going to do next year, those ones are tough to negotiate. So it doesn't surprise me. And then he's saying my health and safety are at the paramount, which is true. He's diabetic. And when we look at the overall numbers coming out of this pandemic that's going on around us, diabetics are definitely among those who are most vulnerable to this. I don't think Max Domi plays again until there's some form of vaccine or some form of medical treatment that would make it so that if he gets this, he's okay. I don't think there's going to be a lot of players who have underlying conditions in every league. I think there's going to be a situation where they're just not going to be able to play. There's not going to be a safe way for them to play. And that's going to be one of the interesting storylines around this, is that we're going to see these guys having their careers put on hold. And like I said, it'll be in every sport, where players will rightfully say, I'm not taking the chance with my health. So, and it's not like teams can discipline them. You're not going to see an owner or a GM saying, well, if they don't show up, their contract's done. They don't show up, they're fired. No, it's not going to happen. But again, this could be something that goes on for some time, and it could very well be something that negatively impacts some players in a situation like Domi's, where he is diabetic. He's got to think about that. He has to think about that, and he has to think about that first rather than whatever his contract would be. So we'll see how this goes from here. Looks like it'll be next week. I know. and it looked like it should have been this week too. We know they have to have 2 weeks of isolation if once they enter Canada. There was an article even in the local newspaper here about how Abbotsford would work as part of the hub city Vancouver idea. So Vancouver having an NHL arena, of course. They have two if you include the Pacific Coliseum. And then there's an NHL level arena here, not for seating, but for its amenities. It's definitely got that. They had the preseason game here that I went to. And then in Langley, you have one as well that the Vancouver Giants play at. So that's 4 arenas all within an hour of each other. And so again, if they're looking at the hub city idea, Vancouver really works because you've got 4 NHL level arenas that you can definitely have full crews in and have it as safe as possible kind of thing. We'll see how things turn out. But whenever something gets announced, I'll be here. This is what I do. And thank you guys so much for tuning in every day. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing right through. You just happened upon this video. Honestly, the subscription totals have been pretty encouraging the last few days. And I am getting the other rack today. I got the third rack for my clothes yesterday, for my jerseys, I should say. And the fourth rack arrives today. So revamping how this looks and the room is going to be done this weekend. So that's how my long weekend's going to go. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section as always. And hey, thank you guys so much for all your support. It means a lot. I will talk to you again soon.